So the new Unearthed Arcana dropped, and it has a lot of martial classes that are getting some reworks. And as the guy who is all about buffing martials, I feel like I should weigh in on this. Was this update good? Was it bad? Can I drink an entire pint of liquid in under 30 seconds? All those questions will be answered soon enough. As some of my fans might know, I am not the biggest fan of WotC's track record for balancing subclasses, so it would be really refreshing to see something well balanced. If you want to play a game made by developers who actually care about balance, then check out Ishanekon World Shapers. Ishanekon World Shapers is an indie TTRPG that is 100% free. If you want a game where you can build any character you can think of, this is the game for you. It's got 10 archetypes that you can choose from, with over 210 sub-archetypes and over 1,000 different abilities to choose from. Now, if you were like me and those amount of options overwhelm you, you can use the World Shapers website to guide you through character creation, and you can even build your character there too. You can even organize abilities by complexity so you don't overwhelm new players. Okay, there are a lot of options, and making a character is easy, but is it cool? Absolutely. The character I made was Danny DeDrunko. He was a brawler who hit harder and was harder to hit while drunk, and there was a luck stat, so you know your boy maxed that out. The more luck you have, the more cinematic actions you could make. Cinematic actions are basically just the player summoning a Deus Ex Machina. In the game we played on stream, I used the cinematic actions to make the enemy slip using butter, fit a bear through a tunnel with butter, and even defeat the boss using butter. Yeah, I accidentally made a butter-based character. It was a blast, so if you want to make a drunken Butterman character and so many more, check out Ishanekon World Shapers today. Thank you to Ishanekon World Shapers for sponsoring this video. The first subclass to be updated is the Ancestral Guardian Barbarian. Ancestral Guardian was a barbarian who uses his ancestors' spirits to help him in battle and defend his friends. It is now called the Path of the Spiritual Guardian. They did this so they can include spirits that aren't your ancestors. They can be forces of nature or forces of the elements. Anyway, the mechanics of this. Oh my god, they gutted my boy. It's so bad. I really think this was one of the better, if not one of the best, barbarian subclasses, and they just made it worse. Right out of the gate, it starts out pretty bad. Originally, what their level 3 ability did was this. The first creature you hit has disadvantage to hit anyone other than you, and the attacks from that debuffed creature deal half damage. It was a pretty good ability, but now they split up these effects, so now you have to choose which one you're applying to a creature. It doesn't have to be the first creature you hit that you give a debuff to. It can be any creature you hit, so you can apply multiple debuffs if you hit creatures multiple times. However, you only get one attack at level 3, and you get 2 attacks at level 5, so you're still doing like the same amount of debuffing. They split up the debuffs you can apply into Distract and Protect. Distract, until the start of your next turn, the target has disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you or any other barbarian who has this feature. And they also have Protect until the end of the target's next turn. The next time it hits a creature other than you with an attack, the creature has resistance to the damage dealt by the attack. And it's like, why are you splitting this up, dude? It doesn't make sense. It was fine how it was, but there's a hidden third ability they added on. It's called Strike. The target takes an extra 1d6 damage, which can be acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, or thunder damage. When I think ghosts, I think acid and lightning. That's what comes to mind, not necrotic. No, I think an entire rainbow of elemental damages. Casper is basically like Tiamat, so you know. I really hate abilities where it's just the subclass getting extra damage. And I see this with a bunch of the Barbarian subclasses, the new 2024 subclasses. They're just giving extra damage, and it's like, if you need the Barbarian to deal extra damage, why isn't that a base ability? You could have just made Rage deal more damage. I think that would have been fine. I think that would have been great, actually. But now, you have to choose, do I want to deal more damage, or do I want to debuff the guy? If you waste this guy, you don't have to worry about debuffing him. He's just gone. He's out of the picture. So most people are always going to go for Strike, and I think that's so much less interesting. I don't know. Their level 6 ability is Spirit Shield. They can use a reaction to reduce the damage a creature takes. It has slightly different scaling. It's not really worth mentioning other than that. Level 10 is the same. You still get Augury and Clairvoyance. Level 14 is very interesting because they didn't update an ability, they just made a whole new one. Originally, it was Vengeful Ancestors, which allowed you to, at level 14, when you use your Spirit Shield, the amount of damage you reduce one of your allies from taking, you can deal that damage onto the attacker. I thought it was pretty good. I liked that. It was very flavorful. It's like, oh, my ancestors are protecting me and my friends. It worked in the context of the theme, It was good. What they replaced it with was Vengeful Spirits. When you roll an 18 or a 20 on a melee weapon attack, you can make one additional attack with the same weapon as part of that action. And you can only do it once per turn. Okay, so it's extra attack if you roll high enough. What does this have to do with ghosts, dude? What does this have to do with spirits? None of that makes any sense. Thematically, it's terrible. It makes about as much sense as giving a ghost acid damage. It doesn't work. So I get to make an extra attack sometimes. Cool. Thanks, Grandpa. I'm glad you're looking out for me in heaven. It just doesn't work, it doesn't make sense, and I don't think it's that good. I would prefer the old one. Overall, this subclass just got dumpstered, dude. If you're considering playing Spirit Barbarian, I call it Spirit Barbarian just because it's easier to say. If you're playing Spirit Barbarian, don't use this new one. Use the old one, it's so much better. You know what would have helped me with this new level 14 ability? If there was any flavor text just explaining it, but there's none. I understand we don't put a lot of stock into flavor text, but I think it's really important because it helps contextualize why you're getting these abilities, why they tie into the theme of your subclass. But we don't get that here, so it's just like, it just feels like the designer's giving up. And I'll be honest, I want that flavor text. I demand the writers put in some effort, and they didn't put in any effort here. I know that might sound like a small thing, but it's indicative of a bigger problem that's clearly on display. The next up is the Path of the Storm Herald Barbarian. It is all about going into a rage and emitting a storm from your body. And this subclass is basically like 3 subclasses because there are 3 different types of storms you can like emit. There's Desert, which is all about like fire damage. There's the Tundra, which is all about like the cold and a blizzard. And then there's the Sea, which is about lightning. This is a subclass that I updated in my Barbarian video a while back. And it's interesting because I feel like I could update Barbarian even more now. And you know, maybe I should. But I remember the problem with Storm Herald being specifically the Desert Storm. That one was generally the weakest out of all the options. I remember Sea being pretty good. So they did notice some of the problems with Storm Herald Barbarian, specifically the desert area, and I do say some. They got rid of the auto damage that the desert aura emit. Like, you could automatically deal fire damage to anyone that was within 10 feet of you while raging, and it was like, you know, 2 or 3 damage. It wasn't a lot, but it was automatic, so it was nice. Now it's a dex save, but the highest the damage goes is 4d4. I don't know, man. If it's gonna be that low, just save everyone the time, skip the save, make it automatic damage. You know what I mean? Let's keep it going. You're slowing down the pace of this for what? What is that, like 10 damage on average? It should be automatic damage if it's gonna be that low. But the damage is higher now, so that is better. That is an improvement. However, one thing that was my biggest problem with the Desert Storm Barbarian was you damaged your friends when they were in the aura, because it doesn't discriminate, that desert aura. It hits everyone except yourself. That kind of stunk. They changed it so now you can save one person to automatically succeed the saving throw. They still take damage, okay? They still take damage from the fire. They just pass and take a little less. Why? Why are you being like this, Wizards of the Coast? Just let them not take damage. Just let me not cook my friends. Why are you nickel and diming me for what? At level 3, it's 2d4 damage. Is it that game breaking? I need to hurt my friends? This is ridiculous. The Sea Aura lets you shoot out lightning from your chest, which is pretty cool. The damage is a bit better, scaling's a bit better, so that's nice. Tundra got a really big change. What it used to do is it gave temp HP to you and your friends, but now it lowers how much damage a creature deals the next time they deal damage, which, it's different. It's a different way of doing it. I think it would have been better if it was multiple creatures that you're giving that debuff to. It's like a similar way to do the same thing. I would still prefer the temp HP because I think it's just simple. It's a lot easier to just write down, 2 temp HP on your character sheet rather than, oh, hey, he deals less damage or anything. It's just easier to remember, so I prefer the old one because of that. Level 6 and 10 are the same for Storm Barbarian. One interesting thing I should point out is at level 6, you get a resistance to whatever the last type of storm you use. So Desert gives you fire, Tundra gives you cold, and Sea gives you lightning because, you know, electricity, the sea, it all makes sense. Eels! What level 10 does is anyone in your aura, they also have that resistance to that damage type. I mentioned this briefly in my Dragon Monk video because they get something similar. Gathering up into one point just so you can have resistance to a damage is kind of a trap because if a dragon has a fire breath, okay, cool, you're all gathered up. Yeah, you might have resistance, but I'm hitting more people. Burn away. It could have been improved. You know, the way I improved it was I increased the range of your storm aura, so that way you can be further away and still protecting people. And I think that works, but they didn't really do anything for this, so that's kind of frustrating. At level 14, they get Raging Storm. In the Xanathar's version, for the Desert Barbarian, you could use your reaction to send fire damage at a creature, and it would be half your Barbarian level in fire damage as a reaction, which was kind of low. They changed it to when an enemy fails their saving throw to avoid your fire aura, the enemy takes an extra 1d4 fire damage at the start of each of their turns. 1d4 extra damage on a level 14 ability. And what's even worse is this is like damage over time. In damage over time, I see people trying to do this in D&D. Damage over time in D&D does not work because most combats last like 2 to 4, maybe 5 rounds of combat. You're not really gonna get much out of that. So on average, you're gonna deal 3d4 extra damage. I'm very happy I have this level 14 ability. Great, cool. And meanwhile, I think like Berserker, if they take damage, they can use the reaction to just hit again, which is just better. So this sucks. It's just bad. It's just really bad. C is actually doing great. C, what it originally did is when you hit people with lightning, it knocks them prone, which is good. Not really level 14 worthy in my opinion. But with this one, what it does when you hit someone with your lightning, it acts like a little mini chain lightning, and you can hit another creature within range, which I think as a bonus action is pretty cool. I actually really like that. I think the C Storm Herald is making out really good in this UA. Unfortunately, who's not making out really well is the Tundra Storm Barbarian. Originally, what their Raging Storm ability did was you force a creature to make a save while they're in your aura, and if they fail, their speed gets reduced to 0, which is pretty impactful. I think it was a strength save, kinda hard to do when a lot of creatures at that level of high strength, but you know what? It's a bonus action, and you can use it like all the time and all your turns, so you know what? I'm okay with it. Now, what the new version does in this UA is if a creature fails their saving throw from your storm aura, they now take 2d4 cold damage, and their speed is halved until the end of their next turn. Brother! Come on! 2d4 damage and a level 14 ability? You gotta be kidding me! I understand you can use this all the time with your bonus action to shoot out your auras, but 2d4? Come on, dude. This is nothing. You gotta do more damage than that. That is crazy. Overall, dude, Storm Herald, I don't know. It could have been so much better. They did some things right, but God, how do you miss the mark with marshals this badly so often? It's crazy. Before I get into talking about Cavalier, can I just say, people who see my fighter video, that was the first video I put out on YouTube, so like, I'd do it differently if I could now. The next subclass to get updated or mangled, whatever you prefer, is the Cavalier Fighter. Cavalier is a great subclass if you want to defend your friends, right? A lot of people, too many people, think this is a subclass that needs a horse. It's useless without a horse. It can't work without a horse. I don't know what you guys are reading. That's not the case. All of the abilities, -1, work without a horse. And the only ability that requires a horse is just, hey, you can mount a horse easier and you don't fall prone when you fall off of it. And that ability comes at level 3 when you get, 3 abilities in total. 1 combat, 1 out of combat, and then 1 horse one. But people think this is the horse subclass and that it doesn't work without a horse. That's not true. Anyway, most of it is stayed similar, except for some key differences. At level 3, they get Unwavering Mark. Both the old and the new version allow you to mark an enemy you hit. Marked enemies have disadvantage to hit anyone other than you while you're within 5 feet of the enemy, not 5 feet within the person you're trying to protect from attacks. It would have been a lot better if that was the case. You know, a horse you're mounted on will always be within 5 feet of you. It makes a lot of sense why people think this is the horse subclass now. I'm starting to get it. All right, Fair. You got me on that one, I'll give you that. The old version, the Xanathar's version, allowed you to make an attack as a bonus action with advantage if the marked target hit anyone other than you. And that attack did extra damage equal to your fighter level. You can only make that attack a number of times equal to your strength mod per long rest. The new version, there's no more bonus action attack, but it does give you advantage on all your attack rolls, but that's it. I would prefer that bonus action attack. It incentivizes the people you're fighting. Hey, you're going after me. You hit me. If you hit my friends, I am going to whack you with a bunch of attacks. I mean, advantage is good, but like, I would rather the bonus action attack. It just seems better. This seems like a full downgrade in my opinion. Fech to this. At level 7, they get warding maneuver. It hasn't changed. What the old and the new one do is exactly the same, which is it lets you increase the AC of an ally for a single attack. And if the attack hits, it gives resistance to damage from that attack. This could have been better, dude. It could have been all attacks for the rest of the round. Shield gives +5 AC until the beginning of your next turn. The level 1 wizard is better at protecting himself than the fucking fighter who's all about defending people. You could have made it better. I don't understand how Wizards of the Coast is so allergic to buffing marshals, dude. Like, is it a joke at this point? Is it a joke on us? It feels that way. Their hold the line ability is good. It's still good. It's the same. Ferocious Charger, that's their level 15 ability. That got a big change. The original one was once per turn, you can possibly knock a creature prone when you move 10 feet in a straight line. You charge through them, you knock them down, right? Pretty simple. The new version gives you an extra 10 feet of movement at the beginning of combat. Also, you don't provoke an attack of opportunity during that first turn. Also, that charge you got to knock people prone, that also only works on your first turn, which feels a bit off. I don't know. I'd rather always have that tool to knock people prone rather than just the first round of combat, personally. And their level 18 ability is exactly the same as the old one. It's still good. You have a reaction you can use on every creature's turn to make an attack of opportunity. It's still good. Overall, Cavalier, I don't think it's necessarily worse. It's different. It's just different is what I'll say. The changes I wanted to see didn't happen. That's my problem. Okay, the next subclass, I might get a little heated. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. This one made me mad reading. The next one is called the Warrior of Intoxication. It was originally the Way of the Drunken Master, but now they renamed it to Warrior of Intoxication. I'm not really sure why, maybe it's a legal thing, but the name they landed on sounds like a fake Dark Souls boss name that I would make up as a joke. So that name sucks. I'm not calling it Warrior of Intoxication, I'm just calling it Drunken Monk. That's just easier for me. And what a Drunken Monk is, it just uses Drunken Boxing. That's the whole subclass. If you've seen Drunken Boxing, that's a subclass. And I just need to put this out there. I skipped the time code on screen if you don't want to hear about Drunken Monk internet discourse and you want to go straight back into the UA mechanics. I see a lot of people saying what Drunken Monk should be and what it shouldn't be. What I think Drunken Monk should be is a monk who gets drunk, because that's the name. That's what it's based off. But a lot of people think it shouldn't be. A lot of people think it should be just emulating what it's like to be drunk, pretending to be drunk, using movements like that of a drunk person to fight, and that this subclass shouldn't have anything to do with alcohol or the consumption of alcohol. First of all, not having drinking with the Drunken Monk is such a betrayal of what it is and the fantasy it's trying to portray. Okay? That's like saying, yeah, Shadow Monk doesn't have to have shadows. It doesn't need to be about shadows. 4 elements monk, it doesn't need to be about elements. Like, this is what you sound like. I'm not kidding. You can make any class act drunk and have them fight like pretending to be drunk, right? You could do that. I would prefer in the original printing of a subclass to have a strong and very clear identity. I want the writer who's making that subclass to have a vision in his mind, and I want to see that vision. And if I don't like that vision, I can change it as I see fit. So the people who want the Drunken Master Monk to not be about drinking, you can change it. But in the official printing of a Drunken Master, I want the themes of drunkenness to appear in them. Also, if you're below the drinking age in your country, and you're weighing in, go away. The adults are talking. I don't want to hear from you. Having someone design the Drunken Master Monk subclass when they have not seen a Drunken Master movie, or do not know the effects of alcohol on their own body, or do not know the culture around alcohol, is like asking an alien to design a fishing rod. Hey buddy, can you help me design this fishing rod? Sure! What's a fish? And I'm not even saying you need to know this and that about it just to contribute to designing this, but I'm saying you need to honor what makes this cool. Because if you're getting rid of the drinking, you're just removing the most interesting part about it. And if you start talking about realism and realistic drunken boxing, you should be shot out of a cannon. Let's put realism aside, because this is a fantasy game. It's silly to bring up realism to begin with. Also, if you want to talk about realism, a dude trained in years of drunken boxing, hell, even years of MMA, will lose to some schmuck with a knife. Alright, that diatribe aside, I really like Drunken Master Monk. I think it's really fun. I think it's silly. I really like the Drunken Master movies, so I really like this subclass, or I like the idea of it, because, man, in Xanathars, when I read it, it was so bad. It was so trash, dude. So when I saw this new UA had a Drunken Master, I saw this, I'm like, oh boy, maybe it'll be better. Nope. Level 3 is the same. Drunken Technique gives you a disengage on flurry of blows, and you have proficiency in brewing supplies and performance. Level 6 gives you redirect attack. I think it is the coolest idea for an ability. Send someone's attack back at them. That's super cool. Unfortunately, it's not really that. It's pretty bad. It didn't change. It didn't get updated. It's the same as it was in the Xanathars version. How this one works is when you get attacked, you can redirect that attack at another creature, not the creature who threw that attack. While that sounds good, keep in mind, you need to be near 2 enemies at once for this to work. Is that gonna happen super often? I don't know. Wouldn't it be just easier to send the attack back? But, nope. You gotta be near 2 people for this to work. Also at level 6, they get Mystic Brews. They can make some brews and it empowers them, which it should. They should get the ability to make drinks that make them more powerful. They should have a beer in hand and be kicking a dragon's butt. Anyway, once per a short or long rest, you can make a mystical brew that empowers you. I really wish you could make more as you leveled up. That would have been a lot better. The effects last 1 hour, and only you can benefit from these brews. I think that's really dumb. It really should be anyone who drinks it. You know, you're sharing in the fun, and you're sharing in buffs. I love buffing my friends in D&D, and you're just not doing that. I don't know. I don't like it. To benefit from these brews, you have to... Okay, this part. You must drink at least a pint of this beverage before gaining its benefit. You have to spend 1 minute to drink a pint of this beverage. 1 minute! Do you realize how crazy that is? For all the non-drinkers out there, let me explain something to you. For people who drink a lot, a pint of beer is very easy to drink in under a minute, like way less than a minute. And this is a level 6 drunken monk, someone who should be flying through these with ease. Taking an entire minute to drink this mystic brew would make sense if it was the first drink they ever had. Let me put this into context for you. A pint is 16 ounces. A beer can holds 12 ounces of beer, so that's 4 more ounces. I have friends who can drink an entire can of beer in 5 seconds. I am bad at chugging, and I can easily drink a pint way under 60 seconds. I can drink it under 30 seconds. You know what? I will prove it. So this is 16 ounces. What's in the glass is Diet Coke. I would have used beer, but chugging beer might be against YouTube's terms of service, so I didn't want to risk it. I think I can chug this in, I want to say under 30 seconds. Camera woman, what do you think?
20.
20?
Yeah.
Oh, so supportive. All right, here we go.
Nine seconds.
9 seconds! Way faster than a fucking minute. All right, now that I'm full of soda, let's talk about the brews they can make. The brews last an hour unless you spend a key, then they last 8 hours. The first brew you get is Cinnamon Dragon. That sounds like a strip club. When you drink Cinnamon Dragon, you can use your action to spew out a fire breath weapon that poisons people. I don't know why we're doing breath weapons, dude. Dragon Monk already did that, and it did it better. This feels weird. It just feels like you're retreading old things. Be original. Heavenly Spirit gives you resistance to psychic and radiant damage. Hey, what? What about drinking gives you resistance to psychic or radiant damage? I can't have my mind read when I'm drunk. When I'm drunk, I'm immune to the effects of God's rays of justice. That doesn't make any sense. What this should have been is it should have been resistance to cold damage because it could give you a beer blanket. And if you don't know what a beer blanket is, you absolutely do not get to say what a drunk monk should and should not be. The next brew is Refreshing Dip. It gives you additional healing when you get healed because everyone knows alcohol is healthy for you and it kills germs, right? So makes total sense. Side note, that's a joke. Your level 11 ability gives you more brews. Blue Lightning gives you an extra punch when you use a reaction to do something other than an attack of opportunity. So it's for deflect attack. Use deflect attack, I guess, and then you could punch with that deflect attack. I don't know. That just, that seems boring, dude. It's extra attack with extra steps. Feels weird for a subclass ability. And then Drunkard's Luck gives you a Heroic Inspiration, and you gain Heroic Inspiration at the start of a combat while you're under the effect of Drunkard's Luck. So an important thing to mention about that last one, there was a version of Drunkard's Luck in the Xanathar's Drunken Master. It let you spend 2 ki to cancel out disadvantage on a roll and roll normally, which I really liked. I feel like you could improve that, but, they went with this, I guess. And the problem with getting a level 6 ability that gives you brews and a level 11 ability giving you more brews is you still only can benefit from one of these brews at a time, and you can only have 1 brew every short rest, right? You don't get as many features because you're literally getting bottlenecked. It's not good. And yeah, they kept Intoxicated Fury exactly the same, which lets you make 3 additional attacks with your Flurry of Blows as long as all of the attacks are against 5 creatures. You know, you just have to have 5 different enemies to punch within range. Yeah, that's great. I'm kidding, that sucks. Because it's so situational, and I don't think it's just worth it. I mean, like, that's a worse fireball, you know? That's all it is. At level 17, too. Overall, man, this sucks. They screwed up. They could have done so much better, and I think this is actually worse than the original Drunken Master. I don't like it. I feel like you get less abilities. They gave it the ability to make brews, which I think is important, but you did that at the cost of getting rid of some pretty good abilities and not fixing what was the original design flaw. Redirect attack makes you think, oh, this is like a tanky subclass. You want to be around a bunch of enemies, but Intoxicated Frenzy and Drunken Technique, which makes it seem like you want to kite your enemies and keep them away. So there are features that are at odds with each other. The newer version hasn't fixed anything, so this still just sucks, and that makes me sad. If you want a better Drunken Master, you can see how I buffed it on my Patreon. Hey, look forward to when I make a Drunken Master video. That one is closer than you think, so look out for that. The last subclass is the Oathbreaker Paladin. Basically, it's a paladin where if you break your oath, you get different evil powers, and that's really dumb. Imagine breaking a bunch of food and safety precautions at like a restaurant. Wow, you get 5 Michelin stars for giving everyone Ebola. Way to go. Like, no, dude. I'm not gonna spend much time on Oathbreaker, but the one thing that you should know is this is the only subclass in here that I think was made tangibly better. And of course, it's the caster. The original Oathbreaker was kind of bad, but to me, it always seems like it was supposed to be used by the DM as a villain character and not for players, especially because it was originally printed in the Dungeons Master Guide. Anyway, the biggest problem with the Oathbreaker was any fiend or undead near the paladin would hit harder, whether they be friend or foe. It had resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from only non-magical attacks, which is dumb. If you're gonna give the resistance, give it resistance to all those types of damage, regardless of their magic or not. The old subclass let you use your Channel Divinity to try and take control of an undead. This one just summons 2 to 3 skeletons or zombies. That's pretty good. You can use your Channel Divinity now when you smite a creature to make everyone around you scared. Kind of weird how you have to spend a smite and a Channel Divinity to do that. I feel like it should just be Channel Divinity, make people afraid. It now resists weapon damage from magical and non-magical attacks, so that's good. Its level 20 ability actually got a lot stronger. It used to emanate an aura of dim light for 30 feet. Now it's an aura of magical darkness, so you can blind people when you activate this ability, which is pretty crazy. It doesn't affect you. You and your allies can see through this magical darkness. That's pretty good. And if a creature is afraid while they're in that darkness, they take 4d10 damage, and you can use a bonus action to attack with your shadows. Yeah, Oathbreaker is good, man. Overall, this UA is really disappointing. It shows that WotC just wants to buff the casters and really isn't trying to make an effort to buff the marshals. It's frustrating. It's very telling that all of the problems that people voiced, only problems that got addressed, were in the caster subclass, right? Isn't that kind of strange? I don't know. I overall use the old ones, use my stuff. I'll probably update stuff too. So, yeah.